I'm here to talk to you about my brother, who, in June of 2016, at the age of 19, was murdered by the police. Had he broken the law? Yes. Did he receive any type of diagnosis for his mental illness before high school? No. He was put in the position that led to his death. He was put in the position that led to his murder because of the system's failure to diagnose and treat his mental illness. We can look back to the late 1950s and deinstitutionalization. From the late 1800s to the early 1940s, the quality and quantity of state-funded mental health institutions in this country improved and increased. However, people were about to receive and afford help for their mental illness, much like my brother's bipolar, where he'd go from living the normal life of a teenager to, when in a manic state, doing completely irrational things, becoming someone else entirely, not the brother I knew. However, in the late 1950s, many people viewed these places as a waste of money, and very few, if any, still remain open to this day. My brother was always a troublemaker in school, but genius. He would finish his work so quickly that the teachers wouldn't know what to do with him, and he'd end up pestering and distracting the other kids. This was as early as kindergarten. This was as early as kindergarten. When he got into middle school, tensions between him and my parents grew. He stole $200+ from out of their wallet to buy pizza for kids at school. Maybe someone should have seen that he flaunted a little bit too much cash for a 12-year-old. Maybe someone should have seen that he needed a little bit of extra help and not failed him, just like they did in the classroom. When he got to high school, he did receive a diagnosis for Asperger's and did receive help for a learning disability. However, the summer after his junior year, he ran, took a train to Chicago by himself in a manic state, and after my parents contacted the Chicago police and he was unable to get a hotel room, he was taken into custody and spent 3 months in juvenile detention. I didn't see him for that whole time. In a 2006 special report by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, it was found that almost 500,000 mentally ill adults are in local jails, more than 700,000 in state prisons, and almost 80,000 in federal prisons. Quote, it is also estimated that mentally ill people make up 2 to 4 times that of the regular population in parole populations. That's 1.2 million people failed, incarcerated, and mentally ill in our country with no help from any level of government that put them in these institutions, just like my brother. When he returned from juvenile detention, he was doing well. He was getting exceptional grades at community high school, and he even gave a resounding speech at their Martin Luther King Day celebration. However, the next day, in a manic state, he ran. He impersonated a police officer and was taken into custody. After the police were unable to hold him, he was returned home, where still in a manic state. 2 days later, he ran and stole a car. This time they were able to keep him, once again in juvenile detention, for months on end without treatment or help. Not even a sentence in sight. When he finally was sent somewhere for treatment, it was a privately funded hellhole called Lincoln Center in Highland Park, Michigan, where my parents and I would see him weekly. He underwent backwards treatment, if any treatment at all on some days, and regressed. When my parents were finally able to get him out of there, he couldn't even be seen by a psychiatrist. They took him to an inpatient program at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital, but were turned away because he needed to go to the emergency room first, where the 4 of us waited for 7 hours to be turned away and failed by these medical professionals at the University of Michigan psychiatric emergency room. Upon almost his immediate arrival at home, in a manic state, he ran. I still remember him disappearing across Pontiac Trail, his strides burnt into my mind. This time, he went to a dealership in Saline, Michigan, and stole a car. He got as far as Toledo, Ohio, before crashing into a barrier at 140 miles per hour. When he was taken into custody and returned back home to the state of Michigan, he joined the hundreds of thousands of others in local jails. Once again, the only treatment paid for out of pocket and sent in by my parents. The system's so permeated with failure that they wouldn't even wake him up to take his meds. They wouldn't even wake him up to take his meds. Once again, months on end with very little treatment, very little help, and not even a sentence in sight. When my parents finally found him, another program, it was 2,000 miles away in Maine, Summit Achievement, a wilderness program, where they took him on bond without help from any level of government that had incarcerated him at risk after taking out a second mortgage on their house so that they could afford this treatment. He was doing well. He even climbed a mountain in Maine, something I never saw him doing. After several weeks there, celebrating his 19th birthday, him and his group were ready to go on their next expo, this time canoe camping. He was showing some of the signs of a manic episode. His handwriting and letters to my parents became scrawled, and he was acting a little erratically, but he still went, and one night, after they set to camp, the guy drifted off to dreamland, failing him for the last time. He stole a canoe in the middle of the night, took it across the lake to steal a pontoon boat. This didn't have to happen. Took the pontoon boat to a nearby campsite. This could have been prevented. At the campsite, he stole a truck, and days later, my parents got a call from a New Hampshire police department. My brother had been shot in the neck and murdered on a lonely New Hampshire highway by those meant to protect and serve. I don't even remember the last time I was in the same room with him. Thank you.